Welcome back to Power CEOs, the truth behind the business. We are going to shift gears just a little bit because, yes, you guessed it, it is time for our AI segment of the week. And this week we have my favorite resident expert in all things AI, Dr. Alan Badeau. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for having me on.
So listen, last week we dove deep into kind of data governance and the data challenges that we face when we're thinking about an AI integration. And what's been heavy in the news has been regulations. Everybody's thinking about new regulations, new guardrails. Leaders are talking about this. It's definitely something that we as entrepreneurs and executives have to be keeping an eye on and considering. So can you talk to me a little bit about how leaders of companies, entrepreneurs should be embracing frameworks or establish AI governance, including compliance, human eye oversight, whatever that looks like, so that we can be evolving and flexible and adaptable and set for success with our AI integrations?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing from an AI perspective, and really the biggest driver around this has been all the security vulnerabilities and the hacks that have taken place over the last 5, 6 years. The hijacking of companies and their data. It used to be, oh, you'd have a security breach, and that maybe they'll steal a couple, and you're off and running because you could fix it really quickly. But what we have seen over the last 2 years has been a transformational change in how the cyber attackers have been able to not only get the data but then lock you out of everything, whether it's your phone systems, whether it's your HR systems, whether it's your operational systems. Heck, we even saw a casino, the slot machines were all turned off because the hackers decided they weren't going to let anybody play that day. It's pretty much what it boiled down to. And that's the thing that has been so worrisome for a lot of folks. And Europe has been leading the way with GDPR and some actual laws that they have started to pass, where, for instance, in Italy, if you're under 13 years old, you have to have parental consent to be able to get onto ChatGPT. And if you don't, it's a violation on ChatGPT for them letting that minor on those systems. The U.S. we're still working through it, and that's a little bit of an issue. The president had his 21 points that he had released back in, I think it was late 2021, and there's been some other bits and pieces of laws that we've heard are coming, and those sort of things, but it's really hard to get everybody on board. So it is kind of like the Wild West. And so states and private companies have been kind of struggling to see, oh, how am I going to handle this? What are the ramifications of this? What if I use copyright stuff to do this? And and all those sort of things. It's kind of like the Wild West. And what I have encouraged folks to do is really focus on your processes, focus on making sure that your people are trained, making sure that you're not just haphazardly releasing a large language model into your environment without figuring out what some of those bounds are. And then also from an ethical perspective, it's continuing to make sure that as you are using AI, that is performing the way that you anticipate it to perform, especially in HR, especially in the financial piece, because you don't want these models to do things that have unintended consequences, because that's a big problem. I help companies all the time with that, and it's something that if you don't have a human in the loop, it's going to happen. You just don't know when.
Can we talk a little bit more about human oversight in AI decisions? Because there's a myth out there. There's a lot of people who think that AI is just going to take a process completely start to finish and they can be hands off and not have to worry about it ever again. And quite frankly, you and I both know that's not the case. Can you talk a little bit about what does that look like? Because you've done integrations for many, many years and you've seen everything there is to be seen out there so far. So how do we think about it as entrepreneurs and executives? What level of human oversight over AI decisions? How do we build that into our processes?
Yeah, if I give the analogy, it's the Google problem. It started when Google first came out, that, oh, I Googled it and now I'm an expert and because I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, and that's a big problem for folks. They think that, oh, the technology's running smooth. It's always going to run smooth. And I don't have to worry about that now because the AI's got it. Well, the AI doesn't have it. It's only a matter of time. I encourage business owners to look at the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, and act. That's what your decision-making process should be. AI should be a piece of that process, and it can be a small piece or a large piece in each one of those phases, but it has to complement what you're trying to do and the decisions that you are making, as opposed to letting it make them on its own. And it only gets more complex and more risky with the type of data that you're using. If you're using PII data and you don't have a human in the loop, then you are an insurance risk, because something is going to happen, and if you don't get it quickly, then it's really going to proliferate all over the internet, and you're going to lose customers. You're gonna have a lot of issues.
I really love that you brought up the whole feedback loop. And now I want to ask a little bit for clarification on edge cases, because a lot of people have started doing bespoke AI integrations, or they've taken something off the shelf and they've done the 20% customization so that it meets what they need. But there's always edge cases. And I've seen this in every company that I've been a partner in the AI space. Talk a little bit about the prevalence of edge cases and what we should be thinking about. What are they, and how should we be thinking about them as leaders in companies?
The great thing about what you just asked is one of the things that actually keeps me up at night when I'm working with companies, because they don't understand, or they don't even try to figure out what the edge cases are. They're doing exactly what you said. They're doing the 20%. Boom, easy button, go, let's deploy it, run. We're going to save a whole bunch of money. The problem is that, especially with these large language models, you don't know, no matter how new they are, no matter how good they are, you don't know what is going to set it off the rails unless you are pushing the boundaries and your people understand what those edge cases are. Now, for instance, it could be you're running a call center, or you have, somebody that's interacting with your customers, on a regular basis. And now you've got the AI doing that. Well, and I've demonstrated this to a lot of other, folks, that somebody that just says something into the phone, it can be a harmless 6-sentence paragraph, can set the AI off and have it start swearing. It can have it, just completely lie about things. We've known about hallucinations for a while with these large language models, and those issues, they're getting a little bit better. We're starting to put bounds around them, but they're never really going to go away. And so having an understanding of where and when it can go off the rails is important. And if you identify enough of those edge cases, then you can deploy your mitigation strategies around those. And that's just another preventative measure that folks can proactively take in order to make sure that those things don't happen, because it's only getting worse with the amount of data that we're pulling in. We're using AI to interact more and more and more with our users. And so identifying those edge cases is going to be more prevalent and more important in people's processes moving forward.
And let me ask you a question, because that's a terminology that's kind of jargon. Like edge case is it's a term that most entrepreneurs don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I'm just going to be real. So how do we train ourselves and our teams to spot those edge cases, or to understand where those trip situations may be?
Well, when I was a CTO at a small business and CTO at a larger business, I had a team, and I would do this myself. We tried to break it. That's the only way that you can figure out where those edge cases are. Swear at it. Ask it inappropriate questions. If it gives you inappropriate responses, boom, that's an edge case, especially if you're running a service center, or even if you have it in a doctor's office or whatever. It's trying to figure out if it's going to say something inappropriate for your environment. And the only way that you can figure that out is to do it yourself. See if you can break it. See if you can do, have it do things or say things or lie, because they do. And if you don't break it, or if at least the company that you're getting the software from doesn't tell you how it's probably going to be broken, you've got to have somebody that is doing that. And if you don't, that's a risk. Because think about driving on a 4-lane or any kind of road. You've got guardrails, you've got lines in between, and if you go outside those lines, that's probably going to be a big issue. It's a big, those are how we look at edge cases, because the statistical mean is right down the middle. As you swerve and go outside of those lines, that's when you start to develop some of these edge cases and some of the problems. Lines, yep. We know where they are. AI, we don't, unless you set those guardrails yourself.
What an excellent analogy. Let's not crash our business cars. Alan, this has been phenomenal. Thank you for going deep into that. We are getting close to the break. How can people reach out to you if they'd like to learn more?
The easiest way is by my LinkedIn account, or you can go to alanbadeau.ai and you can send me an email, or you can watch my show AI Today on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Central Time.
Thank you so much for being here. And you reach out to Alan. If you're thinking about an AI integration, he is an excellent resource for you. He has an AI readiness tool, and he would be happy to help you with that. We do have to take a brief break, but we will be right back after these messages.